It is 2:14 in the morning and your apartment seems quiet. It is not. The refrigerator is humming. Air is moving through a vent. A car crosses wet pavement outside. None of this feels important, so your brain lets it sink into the background. Then, the refrigerator stops. Your eyes open before you know why. Nothing crashed. No alarm rang. The room lost one harmless noise. Yet for a second, the silence feels like a warning. You may have heard the usual explanation. When a forest goes quiet, a predator must be nearby. Your ancient brain hears the same signal and prepares for danger. It is a tidy story, but the evidence points to something broader. Your auditory system detects endings, learns patterns, notices missing events, and reacts when a familiar stream of information becomes uncertain. Sudden silence can feel dangerous because something changed and you do not yet know what caused it. Start with the refrigerator. While its motor runs, pressure waves reach your ears. Hair cells in the cochlea help turn those vibrations into neural signals. Activity travels through the auditory brainstem toward the cortex. When the hum ends, the system does not simply fall to zero. Some auditory neurons produce what researchers call offset responses. They fire around the moment a sound stops. Offset responses appear at several levels of the mammalian auditory system. They help mark boundaries in speech, animal calls, music, and other sounds that change through time. In one mouse experiment, reducing cortical offset responses made the animals worse at detecting when a sound ended. The experiment did not test whether the mice feared silence. It showed that an ending carries information. Your refrigerator has not left a blank hole in perception. It has produced an event, hum, 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 stop. The hum became easy to ignore because it was stable. Sensory systems adapt. A constant stimulus carries less new information than a change. You stop noticing the pressure of a watch band, the smell of a room, or the steady noise of a fan. The signal remains, but it becomes predictable. That saves attention for voices, footsteps, breaking glass, and other changes that may matter more than a constant drone. The refrigerator therefore does something you never ask it to do. By continuing to make the same noise, it confirms that one part of the room is behaving as expected. When it stops, that confirmation disappears. Attention swings toward a change in a stream you had stopped consciously hearing. A sound ending and a sound failing to arrive are different events. Imagine a turn signal clicking in a regular rhythm. Click, click, click. Your brain starts predicting the next one. If a beat is missing, the silence lands at a precise moment. You can almost hear the click that should have been there. Researchers study this with repeated tones. When an expected tone is omitted, the auditory system can produce an omission response. That activity depends on a learned regularity. The brain is responding to a prediction that failed, not only to the acoustic edge where a sound stopped. This is why a machine that pauses halfway through a job can be more alarming than one that was quiet from the beginning. The washing machine has a rhythm. An elevator has a sequence. A person walking behind you has a cadence. Then, the next sound does not arrive, and one question takes over. What interrupted the pattern? For a long time, philosophers and scientists argued about whether we truly hear silence or merely notice that sound is absent. In 2023, researchers tested this with auditory illusions. Participants listened to ambient soundscapes interrupted by silent intervals. Those intervals distorted perceived duration in ways similar to sound-based versions of the same illusions. The result supports the idea that people can perceive silence as an event rather than making a detached judgment that no sound happened. It does not mean silence is frightening on its own. The quiet after you close a door on a loud day can feel wonderful. The same drop in sound can feel awkward when a crowded room stops talking, or ominous when a machine goes silent halfway through its cycle. The difference is not the number of decibels, it is what the silence interrupts and what you think caused it. Return to the apartment. The refrigerator probably stopped because its thermostat reached the target temperature. That is ordinary. Before you identify the cause though, several explanations remain possible. Did the power fail? Did the motor break? Did another sound cover it? Did your attention move because something else happened at the same moment? A defensive system cannot wait for perfect evidence every time conditions change. Human experiments with unpredictable threats show that uncertainty can increase subjective anxiety and defensive startle. Those studies often use electric shock, not refrigerators, so they do not prove that silence creates the same response. They do show why an unexplained change can hold attention. Unknown silence closes the question, an unexplained one keeps it open. Notice what happens when the missing sound belongs to something you care about. A fan stopping may mean the timer ended. A baby monitor going quiet after steady movement may make a parent look immediately. A friend stopping halfway through a sentence pulls your eyes toward their face. The acoustic result is similar in each case, less sound. The information is completely different. Your response depends on the source you had already identified, the pattern you learned, and the consequences of that pattern changing. This is one reason sudden silence often feels larger at night. There are fewer competing sounds, so one disappearing source can reorganize the whole scene. The refrigerator was not merely one layer in a busy office, it was part of the apartment's steady baseline. The effect also depends on attention. If you are absorbed in a film, you may not notice the motor stop at all. If you are already awake and listening for an unfamiliar noise, the same offset can become the most important event in the room. None of this requires the brain to decide that silence equals danger. It only needs to treat an unexplained change as unfinished business. The forest story contains a useful observation and an easy exaggeration. Animals can change their calls and movement when predators appear. Someone who knows a particular environment may notice that its normal pattern has changed. The absence of insects, birds, machinery, or conversation can sometimes provide real evidence about events nearby. There is still no single rule that a quiet forest means a predator, and no established human circuit labeled predator silence. A forest can become quiet because of weather, time of day, human movement, or ordinary variation. Meaning comes from the pattern, the context, and what normally happens next. The survival principle is less cinematic. Abrupt, unexplained changes deserve attention until the cause becomes clear. Back in the apartment, the refrigerator starts again 3 minutes later. The returning hum is almost as noticeable as the silence was. A moment later, it fades into the room. The sequence supplied an answer. Motor off. Temperature rises. Motor on. The pattern makes sense again. Another explanation can do the same job. The power indicator is still lit. The fan completed its cycle. The crowd stopped talking because someone walked onto a stage. Once the cause becomes predictable, attention can release the signal. This helps explain why chosen silence often feels calm. A quiet room you entered on purpose does not violate the model, it matches it. That distinction matters. A recording studio becomes silent when the engineer closes a soundproof door, and the quiet feels controlled. The same studio going silent because every powered device died would feel very different. Your ears receive less sound in both cases. Only one case arrives with a ready explanation. So why does sudden silence feel dangerous? Silence is not proof that danger is present. The feeling begins because the auditory system marks sound endings, learns regularities, and responds when an expected event disappears. Background noise you barely noticed was still providing information. When it stops, you briefly lose both the sound and the explanation attached to it. Most of the time, the answer is a thermostat, a completed cycle, or a room full of people waiting for someone to speak. Until the answer arrives, though, silence is not nothing. It is a prediction that did not come true.